things over there in your tropical paradise?
It is hot. It is hot, hotter than it's been in a long time. But to go with this hellish weather goes this hell of an amazing topic of tonight. And we're talking all about Luciferianism. And Wade, as a practicing occultist, what can you say about this amazing practice of Luciferianism?
Honestly, I've seen so many of the left-hand path traditions that are just about garbage, or that they're just about wallowing in your id. It's really nice to see some of them, like Satanism, Luciferianism, that are on the more intellectual side, that are about, riding that wild horse instead of becoming the horse.
Totally agree.
I really love it because it's like being, I don't know. I really enjoy talking to these people because it really kind of gets your brain hole going. So what we got today?
Tonight's guest, somebody who has, no need for further introduction, because he's done it all. He's a musician. He's an author. He's a walker of the left-hand path. People even call him the father of modern Luciferianism. In the Philippines, I managed to score probably the only copy of his book that I could find, which is the Necrominion, which he actually talked about Egyptian magic and the Setian current. And the fact that he wrote it so eloquently in this book with the rituals, the symbologies of the gods, just blew me away. So imagine how I felt when I got a message, an email from this gentleman, when he asked us to guest on the show, and I was asking, who could we have that could wrap up season 3 Into the Shadows? And who better than this amazing individual? So Wade, to wrap up our 3rd season of Magick.TV, we'd like to welcome to the show Mr. Michael Ford. Hello, Mr. Ford. Good evening.
Hello. Thank you for having me on. Very nice show you have. A lot of variation and different types, and I definitely appreciate it.
Well, we're honored to have you. Welcome to the show. So, Mr. Ford, let's hear it. The people here want to know, what got the legendary Michael Ford started? Where did it all begin? What's the backstory?
Well, really it started from an early age in my experiences in life. As I became a teenager, I was drawn always to the concept of the devil or the adversary and Satanism. I didn't read Anton LaVey's The Satanic Bible till I was in my teens when I could find a copy. In those days, if you went into a metaphysical bookstore and you asked for a copy of that, you would get really shunned and told you need to look at something else. But when I finally obtained a copy, I discovered, okay, well, this is kind of where I'm at. This is good. But I felt something more, or should I say something that goes beyond that a little bit. I think those are some great foundations. But really the concept of the adversary early on helped me get through a lot of things in life, a lot of hardships. And I felt that the adversary was a spirit of not just spiritual rebellion, but also forging your own path in your thoughts, your words, your actions. Those things have consequence. So it really helped me stay out of trouble, as well as did music. And it went on from there. My initiation went into, from Satanism, different avenues in Satanism, but also different areas of pagan magic, Thelema. I used to correspond with Kenneth Grant when he was alive, someone who's it can be very hard to read in the symbolism, but it really helped my direction. And then I discovered John Whiteside Parsons and his wife Cameron's art and his writings with Thelema. I performed a working for what you call the Holy Guardian Angel, or what I call the Daemon, around 96, 97. And I did it with a recording. It's an early Psychonaut recording called Liber Veligius, which is, I recorded in layers the entire Book of the Law to music. And it was a very, very difficult type of working. And I discovered that a lot of ritual and invocations can be centered with music and different artistic avenues that you go about, whatever that is.
Mhm.
And Luciferianism is something that came from that. And it has developed ever since. It started with these early chat books that became Luciferian Witchcraft in the early 2000s, after I did my first book, Book of the Witch Moon. And from that moment on, it kind of exploded and expanded into other areas. And so my initiation has been all along that way. And it's been something that's really humbled me and taught me to appreciate a lot of things in life. And the people that it's impacted, this current, has been very, very rewarding in itself and very nice to see.
Now, if you don't mind me asking, Mr. Ford, just for the benefit of those who don't know, people would say, is Luciferianism the same as Satanism? And if it's not, how does it differ?
Well, Satanism, it's not the same, but there are some foundational concepts in the philosophies that are parallel, that work together. And so Satanism is based around, and I'm going to speak in terms of the LaVeyan concept of carnal indulgence with moderation, existing the best way you can, asking questions, being critical, perhaps even being cynical. Now, if you're a theistic Satanist, that can go into seeking the guidance of a specific spirit for different types of workings. Now, Luciferianism has some of those same lines, but Luciferianism is about the process of initiation. And I've kind of structured it in this basic roundabout triad, and that is liberation, illumination, and apotheosis. And it's a cycle. So once you get one moving, it kind of spins as a wheel in the direction of life that you want to go. And there's not one end. Once you kind of get to the level of apotheosis, it's kind of just understanding and applying the knowledge, attaining insight from that, and learning those skills that, hey, I compelled this and this manifested, this happened. And it can be for different things. So there's a portion of what would be theurgy, or just striving to be the person that you are guided by your daemon, your true will. So that's where the differences is. There's a little more balance in the potential of spirituality, or concepts of spirituality within Luciferianism.
Now, you were mentioning to me earlier before we started the show that one of the benefits that you've had in dealing with the practice of Luciferianism, and you also said it earlier, is that it's really helped you through some tough times. And, you know, it can really build your resilience. Would you mind elaborate on that? Like, how has the practice and study of Luciferianism helped you get through the more tumultuous moments of your life?
Well, I'll give a really good example of many years ago. And it started when I was doing black metal as a teenager, and I was exploring different paths, and I decided I want to do dark ambient or industrial type music, and it was time for me to start a career in business, working my way up. And at that time when I did that, and this was in Indianapolis, Indiana, back in the late 90s, I lost all of so like the little bubble you put yourself in different times in life, and mine was this kind of metal genre bubble. I left that because I was doing this different type of kind of dark music style. And then I realized, oh no, I'm starting this kind of career thing, and this was not what I felt I had to do. But I did it anyway, because I knew that, hey, I have to have some kind of establishments in progressing my will towards manifesting something. And this was unique to me in my own little life. And there were many times that you want to give up, and you have a lot of struggles, but you maintain that kind of intuition with your daemon, that driving idealized concept, that spiritual guidance you get, and you will see omens along the way, and you stick to that path, and you will get that insight and those skills to overcome that. That's one, and that's been continual over the years. But one was also with, as I mentioned to you before, my mother died of cancer almost about 2 years ago. And when she was older, so she was 86, and when you get older, at a point you're going to pass away. If that's just normal course of life. So that in itself, even though that's going to happen, it can be very harmful if you don't keep a perspective about it. And so when she had this diagnosed, she lived in Florida with her brother, who's also elderly. And my wife and I talked about it and decided the right thing to do is bring her here to Houston and see if we can get her enrolled in MD Anderson Cancer Hospital, which is a very renowned place here. So 2 days before I was to go and drive her back, there was a hurricane that went through Fort Myers, Florida. So all of a sudden I couldn't fly into Tampa or Fort Myers. I had to go to Fort Lauderdale. So we flew in, and then of course the rental car that we had set up was gone. All those things were flooded, or they'd moved them out. So I get to Fort Lauderdale, and then we discover that I didn't have the actual card that we used for, and this is very mundane, but for the car rental, and they wouldn't let me have it. We couldn't get a car. So it was just me. So I managed to bribe a Uber driver to drive 2 hours over to Fort Myers, and he did. I got there, and I discovered this frail woman sitting on the couch who was kind of in her own little world, who was sick, who had had no treatment because she kept putting it off. And within 2 days, I managed to find a car, and I drove her 16 hours straight from Fort Myers to Houston, which went well. And then once we got her here, we enrolled her in this hospital, and the hospital is about an hour and 20 minutes with traffic away from where we live. So every other day was driving her there, sitting in the hospital, and this place is huge, with her all day for her different appointments, and then coming back. It was like this full-time job that you don't get paid for. And when you first go in there, all you see are people that have cancer, that are sick. And at first it really affects you because you're perceiving everything on a different level now that, a lot of them are really young, younger than me, some older. And you feel this wave of sadness. And now after you go there a lot, that kind of goes away. You get normalized to it, but it's something that you perceive. And there are many times where I would question, is this what I need to continue doing? And my daemon during my workings just pushed me forward, and I stuck to the path. Now she did pass away, and I was there when it happened, and I learned a lot, and thank you for that. I learned a lot about seeing death, experiencing it, and the grief that comes after it. And my work and my path, my devotion to it, and this has been a life's work, really got me through it, along with my family. So there's a lot of things that you go through. Even though initiation, you will attain levels and insight, you're still going to have challenges, and it's just the course of life, and you learn from those. So these are some avenues that really assisted me in getting through it.
Fascinating. I mean, such an amazing story to hear. Now, just a bit of a shift to the topic, Mr. Ford. One of the things that first pretty much put your name on the map to me was one of your earlier works, which was Liber, HVHI, the Magick of the Adversary. Now, I'd like to ask you, that was, from my point of view, when it came out, my own personal point of view, it's like that was way ahead of its time. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it wasn't a bad book; it was an amazing book, but it's like it would be more applicable in a time now where people can actually appreciate it for what it was worth. Now, how did you come up with the courage to put such a, at the time, because that was like, what, 10 years ago, maybe longer, a book together that pretty much unveils everything about the left-hand path, the adversarial path. And then, like, what was the intention of creating that amazing book?
When I first did Book of the Witch Moon, I sent a copy of the manuscript to a man named Peter Carroll, who was the founder of kind of the chaos magic current.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote an introduction for it. And this book, it was reproduced by us. And believe me, with Luciferian Witchcraft, Book of the Witch Moon, these works right before Liber HVHI, these books were meant really for fellow practitioners, people that were, and there weren't a lot. So I didn't expect much from this. And when Luciferian Witchcraft exploded the way it did and really took a whole dimension and took my true will and really gave me a path with this, Liber HVHI came into works. And at the time in Houston, downtown Houston, where I lived, we had a small coven in which we practiced these ceremonies, which I was reconstructing from different heretical views, Clipothic magic, all of these different avenues. And I was getting a positive result from them. It wasn't just about putting these rituals there, but these were things that kind of opened insight, open paths to insight for me. So Liber HVHI, and also with these works, everybody in all the different cliques and genres in the magical community, apart from a few, were very, very against what I was doing. And I just think that it was because I was kind of the new person there in that sense, or I'd been in other orders and left. And it was a fighting from all sides. Mm-hmm. So experiencing that could ensure that somebody jumps out of that. But I knew what I had to do instinctively, and my intuition told me stay the course. So Liber HVHI was a kind of dedication of expressing the adversary from its historical, mythological, and religious aspects in the positive way that I always saw it. And so that's how that came about. And I've just reissued a newer edition to that, which has a lot, I've got editors now and things like that, which I didn't have then because I never meant for it to go to the level that it did.
All right, now I have another question too, because actually I have a lot of questions if you don't mind, but the one thing I want to ask you is, as a tarot enthusiast, again, your Luciferian tarot existed before any of these smaller print tarot things existed. It was like back when I first saw about your Luciferian tarot, that was really a work of passion, because it's like the stuff you'd have to go through just to get it out. You know, the artwork was amazing, the concept was amazing. I wanted to ask you, was that part of your true will, or was that something that you felt would augment the practices, or what inspired you to actually add a tarot deck on that topic, which was pretty much alien at the time?
It's funny because from an early age, I used the Crowley Thoth deck, and I still respect it. It's I like tarot in general. I didn't see any complete left-hand path tarot. Everything was, in the Thoth deck, well, although it helped, it wasn't. I wanted to see the darker forces, the darker deific masks, as I call them, the spirits, presented in a tarot form that could be used for initiation. And I learned that really from John Whiteside Parsons' works, talking about evocation and his correspondence with tarot. And also Charles Pace, I learned from his manuscripts, which is the basis for Necrominion, on using the tarot also in that way. So it was a very strange time because I left a professional career, and my wife did, making a lot of money, to opening the Luciferian Apotheca, which was almost guaranteed to go just into the toilet because there wasn't a huge left-hand path organized in any way community. But I felt this was what I had to do. And part of doing that and opening that business to bring all this left-hand path tools and books and things like that to the public was I had to see this tarot realized. So I engaged an artist who we had contact from France named Nico Klaus, and I gave him detailed descriptions, and he did the paintings, and then I designed the lesser cards, and then we found, and it was very hard to find anyone to reproduce them. It's not like that you can pretty much do that now, much easier. But we found a printer who would do it, and because at first they wanted to put the traditional, playing cards thing on the back, and which wasn't going to work. And we found someone who would do it, but it was, get this, $7,000 to produce this number of decks, and this was not a little amount of money, especially for us.
Back then, too, it was already a lot.
This was in the 90s?
No, this was in the 2007.
It's still a lot of money for a deck.
Yeah.
Yes. We did it, and we were successful with it, and I'm grateful for that. But this was the first deck that I had seen that was left-hand path dedicated at that time. And it's good to see that people are now doing other things with that, and it's out of print. If we ever reprinted it, it would be have a lot of additions to it. Just over time, there are things that you understand you can do better and things like that. But it was a very good experience in the result of it. But at the time, it was very, very stressful.
It was ballsy, honestly, at that time. I mean, like, if you did it now, it'd be less risky. But the fact that you did it means you were really committed to your craft, and that's one thing I really respected. Which is going to bring me to my next question, Mr. Ford. And just out of curiosity, you said that you actually met quite a bit of opposition when you were starting these things. Was the opposition you met more from sanctimonious right-handers, or was it actually from the people in the left-hand path community who were like, who the hell does this guy think he is, revealing our secrets? You know what I mean? I'd love to hear the story about that.
Well, it wasn't so much the right-hand path or what we would call then white lighters. That was just, you expected that was going to happen. Where I saw a lot was just throughout different magical communities that weren't aligned left-hand path. Like now you see a lot more of that. It's become accepted. People are more open in many ways to left-hand path concepts, and I think it's going in the right direction. Then it was not so much, and I was cursed by one specific witchcraft group in the UK that I actually had good interactions with, but when they learned that it invoked Lucifer, and and let me mention they use that too, but they also use the Christian type of element to it. But I saw balance within the adversary that was both light and dark, and all the associations therein. But it was a lot of different established people and just the general kind of occultniks that are on different things. But over time, it really changed, and it changed in kind of the opposite way. So it was a struggle. It was very much an initiatory experience for me. Because I went from being a very introverted person to where when I have to be, you learn to be extroverted in a lot of ways. And when we started the Greater Church of Lucifer in 2014 and 15, that took us and that experience to a whole new level. So that was an experience as well. So yeah, at the time, you get kind of aggression from all sides. And I had some key allies that believed in the work. And I'm glad over time it has changed.
Which brings
You know
me
what I've been noticing is, speaking of the whole thing with opposition and the greater acceptance of left-hand path, what I've been noticing is that it seems like the whole country is going through its second-degree initiation.
Mm-hmm.
In that, to refer back to Wicca, or specifically Alexandrian witchcraft, in the first degree, they do the whole thing of, do no harm, do no harm, do no harm. In the second degree, that's rescinded because you're considered mature enough to use deadly force when necessary. A lot of people don't present that part of it. But what I've been noticing now is that the country, the magical community, even the religious communities, even the regular mainstream religions have all begun embracing the idea that, hey, we can be assholes when we have to. And they're gradually building up the maturity. I mean, look who we had in the White House.
Yeah.
Not to get too far into that, but we're starting to realize, like, no, we can actually flex muscle when we need to, but we haven't quite developed the maturity to be able to recognize that. But I like that left-hand path traditions are starting to gain a degree of acceptance, in the sense that it's not going away. You're not going to get the genie back into that particular bottle, and we have to learn how to deal with it.
Yeah, I noticed in 2014 or 15, I did an event in Indianapolis, Indiana, where I used to live, and I met so many respectful, nice, pleasant Wiccans and pagans that normally before, when I was in the early days, that interaction wouldn't have happened, but it did, and I was so pleasantly surprised, and we had great interactions. But also, there's a double side to that, in that what I've learned is a degree of acceptance as an individual of different paths, but in experiencing the kind of conflict that you do, I've learned one of the key things was, well, I'm not going to do that to somebody else, what I've experienced. So even if it's something I don't like or agree with, I will, number one, try to find the key points that are similar between like what I do and what someone else does, and then have a pleasant respect for it and look at the things that I like, what I'd call the good things from that, and be, just try to be as kind as possible. When you do that, it tends to give perspective, but it can be hard because, if somebody's, if you experience that, then sometimes you forget that you have to actually show the opposite as well. And I don't mean turning the other cheek or anything like that. I just mean cooperating with people in a way that's has a common courtesy to it.
Right. At the end of the day, we all want the same thing.
Yeah,
exactly.
And most people, when I find it having to remind myself on a regular basis that 99% of the time, a person who's doing something that is going against the grain of everything else, they're doing what they feel they need to do as in their own best interests in the moment, just like I am. And I don't, people don't always understand what I'm doing, so I at least try to give someone the benefit of the doubt until they continually cross a line, and I realize that no, their goal is just to cross the line.
Absolutely. It brings me to my next question, Mr. Ford, don't mind me asking. At this point, unfortunately, the world is still very stereotypical. Okay, in other words, they hear the word Satan, they hear the word Lucifer, evil right away. And unfortunately, recently something happened to our dear friend and previous guest, Shea Belay, who was censored and completely arbitrarily knocked off of Facebook. They cut all of his accounts with no reasons. and no justification, nothing. Now I wanted to ask you, have you experienced censorship that like people won't give you your constitutionally mandated platforms just because of your beliefs?
Well, I haven't had a lot of those things happen to that degree, but we have seen it with the shop that that I co-own, the Luciferian Apothecate, in that social media, the platforms, will censor you before they even know what you're about. And so then you have to go through this chain of command and hope that it gets to somebody who will look at it, look at the evidence and say, oh, okay, it's not bad. It's not promoting harm. With that said, I've seen a lot of different authority figures be very dismissive in the sense of what I do. So I've been very cognizant early on of how social media can be a very, very destructive thing, and it can be a beneficial thing as well. So I have to be very cautious about opinions and things like that, because people can take things totally the wrong way, and it can get out of hand really quick. So it's something that I've seen, and I cautiously, try to stay away from a lot of that.
Smart thing to do. So it's going to bring us now to our next segment, Mr. Ford, which is basically the current events. Now, this, I remember if you asked me 10 years ago about Luciferianism, your name would have come top of mind. Then I don't know what happened between 2007 and 2023. Now it's like everywhere you fucking go, there's somebody putting out a book on Luciferianism, and it kind of saturated the market. I'm not going to mention any groups or anything like that because I don't want to say anything bad about anyone, but it's kind of hard to tell the good stuff from the not so good stuff. So with that being said, with now books easier being printed, Amazon being all over the world, what trajectory do you see the path of Luciferianism and the left-hand path taking? Are we gonna get a better community out of it? Is it gonna become more mainstream, or is it gonna go back into the shadows? What's your prediction of things, and what's your opinion on the state of current events for this practice and path?
Well, as with anything, you're going to have highs and lows. What goes up must come down. And that's kind of the balance of it. And you have a lot of these, you have a lot of trendy garbage. And I've seen it for years. It's always been there, even in the early 2000s. Now that people are able to do it more frequently, just like here's an example of horror movies. Years ago, you could only use film, so you had to have people who would put up money for that. So it took a lot of planning, and most of the time, it was something that people were really dedicated to. Now, people can make horror films just so easily that it doesn't really have to be good, or it can be really good. So you get saturation like that, just like in occult publishing or something else. And the reason that we did Succubus Productions Publishing was because all of the main publishers in the magical community wouldn't touch my works. They said it was too dark, it could potentially be dangerous, things like this. So I had no choice. We did it ourselves, and we stayed to that path, and it's been productive for us. But I'm seeing, over the years, as things get more popular, you will get the people that, for instance, one thing that I've noticed, they will take things from my works and they will say it's their own and publish it, and then say, oh, we hate him, or this and that. And then after a year, they're gone. They run along and either go to jail, or they get a family, or they do something that, whatever the next trend is for them. You do have those who are highly dedicated, but you also get those that have potentially mental health issues that will put out these things, and they're not really fully explored, and it can be dangerous for them really more than anyone else. I think Luciferianism, just like anything, will have highs and lows, and it's up to the individuals. And the big thing is the people that contribute, it's up to them to validate and express the path in ways that really help it go forward. So validation is a big thing. What have you achieved from this? What have you experienced from this? And put it forth in that way. Now, one thing that I've always has been different for me than what I've seen in some other works, and I'm not saying all works, because there's some fantastic authors in different genres, but also within the left-hand path, fantastic ones. But one thing is that the research, because in presenting the adversary, for me, it's about the history, the research, the mythology, the religious aspects. All of these come together to present this as different avenues that you can explore along the way.
Fascinating, because like the way I've seen it was like again, I don't want to disparage or say anything bad about anybody, but like I said, 2007, 2006, if somebody said Michael for Luciferianism, it's very clear. And then a lot of people started letting out their own works, and then some of them would be like, this is pretty cool. And then others of them was like, what the fuck did I just read? What does any of this have to do with Luciferianism? Like, there was one guy I met a couple of years ago, and he claimed to be a Luciferianist. I was talking to him, and he said, well, I don't believe in Lucifer. But you just said you're a Luciferian. And then he said, yeah, I don't believe in it, but I believe in his symbology of what he represents, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, you're confusing the hell out of me. And as a magician, I was looking at it from the magical perspective. Oh, do you commune with Lucifer? Do you commune with him as an actual sentient being? Do you worship him? Do you make deals with him? And this guy was just like, no, it's all bullshit. I don't believe in any of it. And that's what just confused the hell out of me. It's like, is he a totem, or is he actually something, how do I say, tangible that people can work with? Which will bring me to my next question. As a practitioner of, GOETIC demonology and stuff like that, what role do those practices play in the belief system of Luciferianism? Like, does Luciferianism have an active evocation element to it, or do you go towards more an orthodoxy religious approach? Just for those who don't know, I'd like to ask about that.
Well, Luciferianism is not dogmatic in any strict sense. Now, there are different paths that you can explore in my works that explore some of that, but it's kind of a personal mythology and magical approach that you would have more than a collective group. And I say that because every individual is unique in how they perceive the world around them, their internal world, the unseen, the realm of the imagination, and I'm not talking about fantasy, but imagination in that I visualize that I could do this, and then you do it. That's kind of the in between in that sense. But everybody views things totally different, and they perceive things different, and it depends upon who they are, what they've experienced, what they were brought up in, but also what they've attained. And especially early on in the left-hand path, it's you'll have instinctual direction, you'll have intuitive direction, but you don't have a lot of insight or skills in that yet. So it's all over the place, and it takes time to kind of forge your own path. Now, when it comes to the concept of Luciferianism, I decided around 2014 that there has to be a connecting philosophy that is identifiable as Luciferian, more than just someone saying, I'm a Luciferian. What does that mean? Because believe me, I've seen over the years some things that I just can call out and say that is not Luciferianism. And that's just not me saying it because I don't like it. That's like self-destructive, or that's something that's totally off into another area. So it was really based around, I put the kind of philosophy, take all of the magical elements out of it. And what is the philosophy? And so this was the basis for the book Apotheosis. But here's the thing. As with anything in the left-hand path, it is magical, because as you apply the philosophy in your thoughts, in your words, in your actions, even when it's difficult, that is an act of magic. And that's why you have the liberation, illumination, and apotheosis. That's an act of magic. And then there is because it was started from a philosophical forging, but also a magical practice. That's my background. So when I've had to publicly represent like the Greater Church of Lucifer or the Order of Phosphorus or any of these things with my works, I found that I approach people with or answer questions based on the philosophy primarily, because if you're non-left-hand path, you're going to have a lot of questions. So it's about establishing, well, this is the philosophical lines, but magic is the center of this. It doesn't have to be ceremonial magic or evocation, but the Goetia has been a long, powerful tool that I've used. Also, the Testament of Solomon and the Egyptian Coptic traditions, all of those have fueled what Luciferianism is. And I found that even though Goetia represents a lot of the lesser concepts of lesser magic, it actually utilizes the points of high magic as well, if you approach it with a balanced perspective. It's not just about getting the short-term, what people call low magic thing, but it's also about the transformation that occurs in your consciousness, the refining of it.
That's wonderful to say, because one of the things I want to do with this episode is really just kind of educate the people watching into what the path is really about. Like, I asked somebody who doesn't know anything about Luciferianism, have you heard of Luciferianism? It's like, isn't that selling your soul to the devil? I'm just like, oh, Jesus. You know what I mean? It's like, no. I think you missed the point entirely, which is going to bring me to a question I asked Shay Abele when he was on. I said, you know what, people consider you the textbook Satanist. And I asked him, what are the practices you wouldn't touch? You know what I mean? It's like, that's the one. It's like, even for you, I'm not going near that. And I would be very honored just to let the public know, like, what are the practices Michael Ford, Luciferianists wouldn't touch? Like, hell no, that's even too far for me. I'd love to hear that if you're willing to share it.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you one is, I wouldn't kill an animal or a person in any ritual type things. Sacrifice, the use of things like that. We'll go back to Old Testament. It goes back to the Canaanites, all the different, they would offer animals as offerings of saying, hey, this is a blessed thing to take. Well, today we don't have to do that at all. There's no reason for it. Your energy that you direct out, your what I call the unity of will, desire, belief, which I'll talk about much later. Will, desire, belief is the moment of when you can focus and direct that energy out. You don't have to hurt anything to do that. And so any type of sacrifice harming another is not something in Luciferianism or really left-hand path practice in general. There's no sacrifice. There's no goat killing. There's none of that. Now, if somebody is practicing something like Santeria or different paths like that, well, they do utilize that to some extent, and that's their own chosen practices. Every time we buy a hamburger or something like that, somebody's killed that animal for you to have it. But as a part of my practice, I don't harm any animal, and certainly not people. So the other type of practice is the concept that you can sell your soul. Now, selling your soul with a demon is, if you even attempt to try to do that, you extinguish more or less your self-awareness, your responsibility, your accountability, the essence of who you are for something that you have a short-term desire for. It takes away the higher aspects of insight and knowledge that you can attain. And what I found with deific masks, demons, things like this, is you have to be respected back. So you have to show honor and respect, and you will get that back. And if you submit to something that is a kind of anti-cosmic in the sense that it does not submit, and that's where it is, in existence, then you've fallen prey to it. Either you are strong enough to stand facing it, or you're not. And if you're not, you will destroy yourself. So anybody who wants to sell their soul in that sense, I highly recommend that you at least study the philosophy and apply it, and then come back to that later, because you're not going to get what you want from it. So it's not a part of the practice. Now, a pact is an agreement between you and a spirit, and that involves your daemon always. That's intuitive and instinctual, and those acts will bring you good results, but you have to stick to what your agreement is. And usually it's something that you give up, or something that you do, an offering for a set period of time. One of my early pacts with Lucifuge, and this goes back to the late 90s, was to present my works and to really be able to put them together. And I did this, and then it happened, and I stuck to my agreement, and it's fine. But you have to do something that you feel is right inside, and if it's not, don't do it. Don't give a part of yourself to that. Now, another way that people sell their souls is, say you want to go into something like politics, and you have all these ideals and things that you want to do that are good, that are positive, in the sense that you're building, you're creating, and you're doing less destruction. But what happens is you get into a machine that you have to conform to before you're accepted. So in that sense, you have sold your soul, in the sense that you're not doing exactly, and it's not just compromise, it's just a path that you go to where you become a part of that.
It's like
It
getting
becomes like an ethical
energy, right? It's like, you know, to be part of that collective, you're selling yourself to have its power, but no longer yourself anymore. You're now part of this. It's like being in a gang or something like that, right, Mr. Ford?
Yeah, that's the best way that I would see it. Now, of course, you have to make compromises in everything you do in life, but there are some core things that everyone has that they should, whatever that is, they should stick to and try to see how they can make better of it. So in that sense, that for me are practices that I would not touch. Now, we had a choice in 2014 when Luciferianism, when the Greater Church of Lucifer opened in Old Town Spring in Texas. I did many interviews with the media and things like that, things I'd never done before. And at a certain point, you had a choice. I had a choice. I could present Luciferianism as a dogmatic kind of religion, because it had to be recognized as that by the government to operate, really, or focus on it as a philosophy first and foremost. And of course, if we did the religious aspect, you would probably expand even more. But I knew the right thing, and my fellow people who I worked with understood that it is about the philosophy, and that is the right path, even though it was harder. And that's what I did, and I'm glad I did that. But in life, you have all kinds of choices, and you can either trust your instincts, your daemon, your true will, and stay to that, or you can indulge. And if you do go into those temptations, it can nothing's going to destroy you. You're going to potentially destroy yourself.
It becomes a matter of ethical creep. Like when Rob was thinking about becoming in the machine, is that you start something, and in order to continue going, well, you have to do this, and one thing doesn't seem wrong, and then the next thing doesn't seem wrong, and then the next thing doesn't seem wrong. And this is the way it goes with politics, especially when other people that are already in the machine want you in a compromised position that they know about that's not public knowledge. And then pretty soon you're just trapped in this loop of doing the wrong thing over and over again.
Absolutely.
And, yeah.
You heard it first here on magick.tv. I mean, straight from the horse's mouth, the father of modern Luciferianism shared with us stuff he wouldn't do, and I would take his word for for what it's worth, because he's dedicated much of his life to this. So I really thank you for this, because the last part I'm really eager for is, of course, our Occult X segment, where you, Mr. Ford, can teach us anything. Now, you didn't tell me what you have planned. I'm excited. I know Wade is excited. So what have you got for us today, Mr. Ford? What are me and our viewers going to hear from the legendary Michael Ford? What are we going to learn?
Well, I'm going to teach everyone about how to use VR's The Exorcist as a means of hugging demons. Actually, no, I'm not. But I do recommend the VR Exorcist game for people that like that type of thing. It's really cool. And you can't hug the demons even though you try. I've tried many times. It's just not
This
programmed that way.
available on PS4?
Yeah, or Oculus. Oculus was what I have experience with that. And I got the thing in 2020 with the pandemic. I bought it from a guy in a parking lot. You couldn't find him. And the only reason I wanted it was for The Exorcist. But I found that all the other, even the games that you would never play, are just kind of interesting with that thing. But what I'm actually going to talk about is a key component in magic. And it's not going to be this extensive ritual. You can read about those, but this is about really attaining success, or the path to success, with invocation. And it's a key component that is so simple that it's often just totally overlooked. A lot of people, when they start a ritual, especially in the beginning, will recite it. They'll pay attention to doing all the little actions, whatever those are, and they wonder, did it work after they're done? And there's a way to kind of compel that change and to experience that gnosis, which is knowledge. And that is, with every word, when you do a ceremony, don't focus so much on the little steps. In that's my obsession, is getting the steps right. It's when you perform the invocations that every word you speak, that you utter, whether it's quiet, so if you're in a small room and you can't be loud, or you have family or kids that you don't want to really experience this until they're older, then you will, whether it's loud or quiet, every word you visualize in your mind occurring. Use your imagination in that sense. Trust in your intuition and really focus on that. So every word you're visualizing, every word you're building this energy, this focus, to where everything outside of that doesn't exist. So you're suspending disbelief, even if you have this practical rationality in day-to-day life, and you wouldn't tell someone, hey, I believe in this and this. But when you're in that chamber, when you're in that working, then you totally align your mind with that. So in reciting, in doing that invocation, as you reach to the climax of the buildup of energy, and this is a key thing, in those moments of gnosis, it's will, desire, and belief united as one. No difference. And you have to see your desire as a real thing, as something that is happening now. And you have to allow your imagination, you have to allow those feelings of, this is what it feels like when it's accomplished. This is what I think it's going to feel like when I've attained this. And feel it. Don't tell yourself this is going to happen, but feel it and then see it. And in that moment of directing that energy out, then you will find that you have these steps, these things that go according to plan in life that open up for these things to occur. That will really create that bond, that spiritual energy between you and what you're invoking and your goals for that. You can also do things such as small offerings of incense, just as thanks or as something that you're focusing on. But always, the key component to making rituals successful is will, desire, and belief. And once you have that component, that belief, and you shut out everything else, you'll attain success.
Whoa.
And that's my short little thing. I'm not gonna. I didn't want to go into an expansive thing, but it's a key component.
That's amazing.
So that's good. That's proper mindset is everything.
That's epic. Mr. Ford, I just wanted to thank you from the bottom of our hearts here at magick.tv. Wade and I were really worried who we were going to have to close season 3, because season 3 was called Into the Shadows, and we didn't want it just to be anyone. And then, thanks to our buddy Belial, we get you. So you have no idea how this. I was like telling Wade, "Holy shit, we've got the perfect guy to close it." And yeah, man, straight up, man, from GOETIC
strong.
And you know what? With that being said, Mr. Ford, I wanted to give you this time to plug any upcoming workshops, books, anything, any websites that you'd like to invite people to, because we're here to support you 2,000,000%.
Well, thank you very much for existing. Like I said, I liked what you guys do. It's very nice to see. It's very mature, focused type of program, and I'm happy to be featured on here. Thank you so much. I will say that I have many different works available. I've written around 27, actually over 27, but there's some new works. One is Infernal Union, which has a lot dedicated to Belial and the adversary in general. It goes into the heretical myths of the fallen angel, of Samael, of Belial, of Satan, of Lucifer, the connections, etc. But it's also a very focused grimoire of initiation. I have the book Hecate and the Black Arts, and I have several new works in process now. One is dedicated to the Jinn, which has been an extensive work. I have one specifically on Lilith and Lamashtu and those origins and other things. You can find a lot of left-hand path ritual tools, things like this, books, at the Luciferianapotheca.com. I am a co-owner. We've existed since 2007, and we have all types of things from ritual supplies to clothing, t-shirts, etc. I also
Can we
have
get a link to that?
Yeah, that's coming.
Yeah, okay.
I also have my ritual music and things like that. Octaya, if you type in AKHTYA, that's the name of the project and one of my magical names. You'll find the Dark Ambient Bandcamp site, and we have various albums out. It's something that I do in accordance with my writings because it expresses musically what I can't express in writing. So it's usually along the path workings that I'm doing at the time.
Is it on Spotify, sir, this Octaya?
No, it's on Bandcamp. It's going to go to Spotify at some point as time permits. But yes, it's on there. And my YouTube channel, Michael W. Ford, you can look that up. That's on there as well, and I have a lot of different videos of different things on there. So,
and are your books available on Amazon, sir, or are they directly only available on your website?
On the website and on Amazon as well.
All right, amazing. So, Mr. Ford, from the bottom of our hearts here at magick.tv, we just want to thank you for all the works you've done. Keep up the amazing work. We hope to see a version 2 of the Luciferian Tarot. I mean, I personally am hoping for that one. But that being said, thank you very much. Please don't go anywhere. We're just going to put you in the waiting room while me and Wade just pretty much sign off and say goodbye to you afterwards. So, once again, Mr. Ford, thank you for closing season 3 for us, Into the Shadows.
It's my honor. Thank you as well.
Honor was all ours.
Way to close strong.
Well, Wade, season 3, brother.
It was good. It was good, and it's only getting better.
Season 4 is already in the works, and we're talking all about the modern magicians. We're not just going to talk about different authors and practitioners. We're going to have podcasters, website owners, YouTube channel host the works. We're going to have people sharing techniques. And, of course, this show would never have happened without the help of the big man, Belial. Without him, me and Wade wouldn't be talking right now. I'd probably be 6 feet under. Also, shout out to an amazing soul. Continue to fight, brother Shea Abulay, author of Frederick Nietzsche and the Left-Hand Path. We're here. We're supporting you. With that being said, good night, everyone. Thank you for tuning into an amazing 3rd season of magick.tv. See you around end of May, early June for season 4, The Modern Magicians.